before we start any food preparation today, we're going to go over a couple guidelines. So to follow our food safety rules, we are going to make sure we have all clean and sanitary disinfected surfaces here as we need them. We're also not going to have any cross-contamination here. We don't have any perishable items within reach here. And we're just going to be cutting up some fruits and veggies. So since we're not cooking them, we are going to be using protective food safe gloves for this. And let's get into it. Now that we got all our food safety precautions out of the way, we're going to go over how to actually hold a knife before we start any cutting. So there's two basic parts to the knife. Obviously we have the handle and the blade. Now, most people will grab farther down on the handle where all these finger grooves are, and that does feel fairly well, but there's not that much control when you're that far down on the knife. So sometimes it's a better idea to at least get a thumb and maybe a forefinger up on that blade, and that way you have a lot more control. You're closer to what you're cutting and you're closer to the cutting surface, and that actually makes it safer. So you guys will notice you get a little bit more control where you're cutting, whereas if you're down on the handle, it's more of a chopping action where you can't really get a good slice like you can by holding the blade. Another rule of thumb is to always keep that tip down towards the surface. So whether we're cutting a large watermelon or just a small carrot, we want to keep the knife tilted down, and that will ensure that it's less likely for things to get caught under there, especially our hands or our fingers, and it's going to give you the most control. Now we got a tip down, a good grip on our knife. Our next major tip is called the bear claw or the finger roll. So you'll notice a lot of professional cooks and chefs may do this trick where you'll see their fingers are kind of pointed down. And that's so that we can rest this blade against our fingers. That's why some of these blades are so tall, and that we can actually set that against our hand or just barely rest it on there. And that way we can get going quite fast and not really have to worry about our fingers getting in the way. Another good rule of thumb is a lot of people try to watch on both sides of the blade so they get the knife perfectly straight with them, which may seem like a good idea. You, again, have a lot less control. Try getting perpendicular or slightly turned towards your blade or away from your blade so that it's facing with you. And that way you'll have a lot more control, and you really don't need to see what's going on the back side of the knife. We're gonna stay tuned on where our fingers and our blade are meeting and the things that we're cutting. All right, so now that we can start actually cutting up some of this fruit, we're gonna show you how to slice properly. So we've already got half a tomato started here. We're gonna keep that tip down, rest against the fingers, and we're just gonna slice into that tomato. Now notice once we get to the halfway through, we're gonna start coming downhill and getting close to our fingers. So an easy tip you can do is turn that tomato around real quick and go right back to the other side. And there we go, we just sliced up an entire tomato, and not too long. Now that we made it through slicing, let's go on to dicing. So say we're making some tacos or something where we need these tomatoes in a little bit smaller pieces. We already have them nice and sliced. We're gonna bring them back together, and then we're just gonna do our same technique coming from the back. Notice we're keeping those fingers curled. Helps if you got a nice sharp knife. And now we've cut those tomatoes into a nice little dice. Now that we got these tomatoes all diced up and ready for a taco, if we needed to make these any smaller, say we're doing garlic or perhaps an onion, and we need to make these any smaller, we can utilize another common trick called the rock and chop technique. And this works really good if you actually need to dice or mince up something even smaller. So we'll get out a little bit of our tomato here. Now say we needed this tomato even smaller. What we could do, of course, keeping our tip down and our hands firmly on the knife, we can go ahead and set a finger or two on top of here. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna rock the gentle curve of that blade right over the fruit. Now we're gonna do this a couple times. I'm just bringing the knife straight up and down and rocking it back and forth. Now just with a couple passes, we've gotten this tomato cut up very, very small. And if we continue to do that 3 or 4 more times, we could mince and even dice this into small pieces. That works really good for garlic and other herbs and spices. Well, that wraps up our knife skills video for you guys. We've showed you all. We've got slices, we've got dices, and we've even got mince for you. We showed you safe ways to hold on to that knife and some other tricks for keeping your fruits and veggies safe for cutting up. And I hope you guys use them in your kitchen with your families soon. And we're going to go out there and enjoy that Michigan spring. We'll see you next time.